This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Thank you for downloading another episode. You're listening to Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. What's up, cuz?
That song doesn't make you want to rip your shirt off, twist it around your hand, and pull some Petey Pablo-like moves. I don't know what's going to do it for you. I came in here dragging ace, just tired. That song comes on, I'm ready to go. Let's do this.
We got a lot to talk about. Episode 195. Thank you for finding it across the various platforms that we put out podcasts. But first and foremost, I got to call you out, bro.
Me?
Because you put your own needs ahead of the needs of the podcast. And let me explain. Okay. I'm watching the draft, doing my thing, and I'm getting excited. I'm going, okay, who are the Lions going to select? I'm on Twitter, obviously, and you know that there's a delay in terms of the coverage that what's announced in Philadelphia is going to be released into the public. So right away, I'm looking, I'm seeing what's going to happen at number 21, and I'm going, oh my gosh, it's probably going to be either Reuben Foster or Jared Davis. It's going to be one of those two. And obviously, based upon what was going down, the reactions on Twitter, the information was coming out about 4 minutes ahead of the television. And so, boom.
I'm glad you got that timed out.
I was looking at it because you had messaged me. And then I go, okay, boom. Obviously, we serve a lot of people who follow us and support us on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. Like I always say, the most interactive sports Twitter page in all of Metro Detroit. So, boom.
I'm one of the best around, too, by the way.
Yes. And so I'm like, boom. The number 21 pick is Jared Davis. I'm all excited. I'm like, okay, good. All of a sudden, you're like, damn, bro. You had to go and ruin the whole draft toolbox. And I'm like,
I did call you a toolbox.
This fool doesn't think I'm going to sit on that information and let it roll off of my dish, which is also a minute behind cable. Get the hell out of here, bro.
You did ruin the surprise for me, and I did call you out for it.
What are you talking about? You didn't expect? First of all, if you wanted that to happen, you needed to preface it by telling your co-host.
I should have.
Yes.
I should have let you know I was in the bubble. But this is like the second or third year you've done this to me, so I don't know what I was expecting.
Exactly.
But I was waiting there with bated breath because the way the draft fell, it was like offensive guy. There were 3 quarterbacks taken right away, and this is what we had talked about on last week's podcast. If quarterbacks go early and often, that sets up beautifully for the Lions. And it did. The Lions were in a perfect spot for this draft. It was unbelievable what they had the choice to take at that time at 21. And you're right. I did call you out, and I should have told you I was in the bubble, and I don't know, man. My bad, I guess. But
listen,
third year in a row, you sat there and you gone and spoiled it for me.
I don't get your thinking at all, because if you're going to be in the bubble, which is fine, there's one place you absolutely never go. It would be Twitter.
That's true.
Because I wasn't the only one, unless I'm special and you only follow me. It was like Dave Burkett, Justin Rogers, MLive, 97 won the ticket. All the other sites were like Jared Davis. I was like right in the middle of all that. So you can't just hold on to that information.
I don't get notifications from them. I get notifications from you. Gotcha. So it's one of those things where I wasn't, up until like 2 picks before the Lions, I wasn't on Twitter. I was away from it. And I was like, just sitting there waiting. I was like, all right. I wanted the announcement. I wanted the whole, I wanted it to be like it was back in like 1998. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of where I was with it. So
what was your reaction when you saw it?
They had a ton of choices. I liked the pick. I'm not upset with the pick.
Day one was cool.
The thing was, as the draft unfolded over the course of the next 2 days, I started looking back at that draft pick, and I fell less in love with it, which was...
With Jared Davis?
Yeah, which was a little bit weird. And I'll explain it. Well, when we sit there and we start breaking down the draft coverage, we've got a whole bunch to talk about, so let's kind of lay out the program right here, right now. We're going to be doing a Jockson session in the middle, or Jock Jams, I'm sorry, in the middle. We're going to have our wrestling, of course. We'll wrap the podcast up with the Tigers. But let's start right away with the hot button issue, which is the Lions draft and the reaction to the Lions draft. And let's just kind of begin right here.
How are we today?
Everybody's great. I think Bob Quinn and the Lions brass obviously feel better about certain parts of this team than we do. And that being said, they did not address the running back situation, and they did not address the defensive line situation as heavily as I would have liked them to. So I think this draft, looking at it in its totality, I think this draft is going to probably play itself out much like last year's draft did. And last year's draft was beautiful. It worked out pretty well. You got an immediate starter, and I think that day one starter is going to be Jared Davis, okay? You've got a few guys who I think will eventually start and work their way into the starting lineup, and I think that's going to be the cornerback and the second-round pick with Teez Tabor, and I think wide receiver Kenny Golladay is going to start eventually if they don't start right away. You also have some guys who are depth and have the potential to become starters, like Jalen Reeves-Maybin, the tight end out of Toledo, Michael Roberts, who was taken in the 4th round. Also, your defensive end with Jeremiah Ledbetter. So you've got some guys who I think have the potential, they have the upside to become players in this defense or in this offense, and you've got guys there who they're not going to probably make an immediate impact, but eventually will, whether it be through just the attrition of a regular season or whether it just be there's not guys in front of them who can sit there and hold them down. Also, something that we've talked about on different podcasts right around the draft, I'm a huge fan of taking a quarterback every single year. If you don't take one every single year, I feel like you should take a quarterback late at least every other year. And they went ahead and they grabbed the late round quarterback in the 6th round with Brad Kaya.
What?
I think that was a solid pick.
I might have to disagree with you on that one.
That's fine. We can kind of hash that out. There were also some questionable moves, or as I was kind of alluding to, lack thereof. You didn't address the defensive line or the running back positions, and these were both areas that I think we both thought they needed to improve on. You didn't pick up a running back that could have been special, i.e. A Joe Mixon, a Cook, a Kamara, a Hunt, a Perrine, a Foreman. Any of these guys you could have picked up as late as the 4th round, and these guys look like they have the potential to be very, very special. Running back was huge in this draft. I think, 16 went overall? That's a lot of running backs for a draft. And then you don't sit there and you don't address your defensive line until the 6th round at pick 205. That's a little bit of an issue to me, and that kind of raised a little bit of a red flag. So I was just kind of like, there are some issues with this draft. In the end, though, I think it has the potential to be a solid draft. I just think it could have been better. I don't know. That's kind of where I stand. What's your reaction to this Lions draft and kind of the way it ended up playing its way out? Because, look, you can be as excited as you want for the first round. First round I thought was great. But when I sit back and I take a step back from everything, I look at the entire draft in its totality, I think there's some issues here that need to be addressed or should have been addressed in the later rounds.
As day one kind of played out, you saw a run on offensive players. You saw that it was going to likely fall into the Lions' lap, that they could get the guy that they wanted. But many people, as number 21 was approaching, was like, they were debating, they were saying and putting out on Twitter, they were saying, look, the Lions have Reuben Foster basically right there, and he fell right into their lap. And I said to myself, okay, this is a perfect example, and this is what we'll get a chance to see with Bob Quinn in terms of, is he willing to take a troublemaker? Is he willing to take on a guy with red flags? And so when the pick came down and it was Jared Davis, linebacker out of Florida, I said to myself, okay, it looks like the Lions are going to be safe, and they're going to play it really safe in terms of who they want to bring into their organization. So I was excited because, by all accounts, everybody that's talked about him has said, look, this is a 3-down linebacker. He models himself after Ray Lewis. He's got leadership potential. He tests all across the board very well in terms of leadership, how he interviews, the tape, all that kind of stuff. Now, of course, there is a concern in terms of his past with injuries, missing the entire 2014 season. But all in all, Jared Davis is fine. Then the rest of the draft kind of played out, and then you started looking like who the Lions were drafting as opposed to who they passed up. Kind of left me scratching my head, and I didn't at first start looking at the players individually. I started to think a little bit higher in terms of, what is Bob Quinn's philosophy here? What is he trying to do in his drafts? What is he trying to do with the organization? And then it kind of came to me, and it kind of makes sense with what they're doing. Bob Quinn comes from New England, and so what does New England have? They have a system. okay? And you can see it when you watch them play year in, year out. They can go and dump their entire team. That's why you see high-profile guys that maybe the Lions would keep for an entire career. The span of their entire career, the Lions might keep. They let them go. They get cut. Why is that? Because they just want to set up a plug-and-play system. So when I'm thinking about what Bob Quinn's doing, he's thinking about, you know what? I want to get guys that can be projects that I can mold, that we can fit into the community, that are not going to be troublemakers, that are going to come in here and try and fit into my system. So he's not looking at sexy picks. He's not looking at superstar athletes right off the jump. He's looking at guys that he believes are going to fit his system and are going to come in and contribute, be good guys in the community, be good guys in the room, and trying to avoid as many red flags as possible. And it was obvious. The only pick I thought where I said, I'm not really sure why you would go that route was the 6th round pick. I don't think you needed a quarterback at all in this draft. You could have went with maybe even a Cutler to sit on your bench. You could have went with a Kaepernick to sit on your bench, or maybe somebody else that gets cut in the preseason. You didn't have to draft a quarterback. So that pick kind of left me with my head scratched a little bit. But the first thing that I want to talk to you about is the concerns are there that there are going to be players in this draft that the Lions did not take that might be successful in terms of, a Dalvin Cook, in terms of a Reuben Foster, in terms of a TJ Watt, in terms of other players that we passed up on that might be really successful. And we're looking at guys like Tease Tabor, Kenny Galladay, and going, are they going to develop in a year or two?
Before you go too far down that road, and we can double back to that, I want to debate this with you regarding the quarterback that they took in the 6th round. Okay, the reason why I think this was a solid pick, okay, by all accounts, he's a quarterback who has played in a pro style offense. He can run some option offense, so he's done a little bit of both. On top of that, you're talking about the way New England does things, where they sit there and they pick up guys and they kind of have a plug and play. You sit there and you draft quarterbacks. Look at what's going on in New England right now with Jimmy Garoppolo. The Browns on numerous occasions have come to New England and said, hey, we will trade you whatever you want. Give us that quarterback. So now if he's successful, if this quarterback proves that he's worth a damn at all, you now have trade bait. You now take a 6th round pick this year. You sit there, you groom him a little bit, you show out some of his wares, and if he's worth a damn, you can then turn that 6th round pick maybe into a 1st or a 2nd round pick in a year or two. So it's a way to kind of cultivate talent. So that's why I like doing that.
No doubt that's the reasoning.
It's a 6th round pick. What are you doing with a 6th round pick? What's our 6th round pick from last year doing? He was a long snapper that they had to IR.
There was a 6th round pick that's probably going to go down as probably one of the best players in entire NFL history. His name is Tom Brady.
Exactly.
So the way I'm looking at it, though, is you have your project in Jake Rudock. If Matthew Stafford goes down, you're going to pin your hopes on Jake Rudock. I would say if you're starting to look at what's going down in next year's class, that next year's quarterback class could be one where you could find another project quarterback. And here's the reason why I disagree a little bit with that pick. What you said in its entirety is 100% true. With a team that's had a history of success, like New England, like a Denver Broncos team, they can afford to do that kind of stuff. What the Detroit Lions need is more impact players.
Do you think New England went out and they picked up Tom Brady knowing that he was going to be as good as he was and knowing that he would win as many Super Bowls as he did? Because if you tell me yes, I'm going to tell you that you are on something. There is no way. They struck gold. Here's the deal. You have to realize New England sat there and passed on Tom Brady at least 6 different times before they drafted him. On top of that, everybody in the NFL passed on Tom Brady at least 6 different times before New England struck gold with this guy. Before they said, yeah, this is the dude that we want. So, look, Tom Brady was one of those things. He was a once-in-a-lifetime, you stumbled across gold type of player who ends up turning out to be a franchise quarterback and leads you to success. This is not something that happens time in and time out. What I'm saying, though, is in New England, they have a system. And Bob Quinn comes from that New England tree where they have a system. You pick a quarterback often and regularly, whether it be once every other year or whether it be once a year. And then what you do is you groom them, you brush them up. Because worst case scenario, right? This is what you have. You have a Ryan Mallett type situation. So you sit there, you invest a 5th, a 6th, maybe even a 7th round pick into a quarterback in this draft. You then wait 2 years, you sit there, you turn him around, and maybe he turns out to be a Brian Hoyer or a Ryan Mallett. And you know what you're going to get for him? You're going to get maybe a 3rd round pick. You're maybe going to get a 2nd round pick for this guy because somebody else is going to want him.
I'm ready to drop the boom on you because here it comes. Get ready.
If
it's
not,
coming.
you might have your Tom Brady or you might have your Jimmy Garoppolo where you can sit there and turn around and spin him into a first-round pick.
Okay, if you saw the history of what was going on with Brad Kaya, he was projected in years past to maybe come out and maybe be a top 10 pick, and now he's come out and he's dropped to the 6th round. If you wanted to do that, you wanted to make an investment, why not draft a better player then and go out and get Chad Kelly? Have him sit on your bench and then go out there.
Chad Kelly's got a ton of red flags.
He does.
Chad Kelly's a mess. On top of it, Chad Kelly likes to sit there and DM one of your favorite people, and she just puts him on blast regularly.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe he has an opportunity. He might fit that mantra of another guy that likes, beautiful women, and Aaron Rodgers. You never know. I'm saying in terms of when the Lions are picking people, maybe you have to take a flyer out on a guy with some trouble if you're going to do it in the later rounds. Why go with Brad Kaya, who, yes, many people think he can develop in this system, but there is a chance that he doesn't, and it's a wasted 6th-round pick on a team that needs defense, running back, and definitely needs to shore up the offense.
If you listen to Bob Quinn, where they thought he would go was either somewhere in the 4th or the 5th round. So the fact that he was there in the 6th round screamed value to them. On top of that, his former coach, Al Golden, is now part of the coaching staff for the Detroit Lions, and he sat there and he basically said, look, this is everything you need to know about this kid. So you've got a guy inside the room, inside the staff that you trust, saying, look, if you want to take him in the 6th round, I think it's all thumbs up. It's all go. He's going to sit there and he'll either become this, or that, and we can maybe work with him. So I don't see a problem with taking him in the 6th round. Look, you got Jake Rudock. I know you weren't a huge fan of the Jake Rudock pick last year, right? Do you believe in Jake Rudock? Do you think Jake Rudock? Let's do this. Let's play worst case scenario. Matt Stafford gets hit, his chest gets crumpled in, he loses both his shoulders. He basically looks like the dude from Monty Python.
If it happens game 2, it might be something that could be history repeating itself.
Well, it could be, but you got to go with Jake Rudock now. Do you believe right now, right here today, if we had to plug Jake Rudock in, this offense is going to go?
No way.
Exactly.
No way.
Exactly.
Come on now.
Exactly. All right. So, look, Jake Rudock still has some developing that he has to do. So you go out, you get Brad Kaya, and maybe they develop together. And if one sits there and flies past another, hey, you maybe have your backup quarterback, or you got that trade bait I was talking about.
Okay, so step 1. Are you in lockstep with what I'm thinking regarding, Bob Quinn in terms of setting up a system, and are you in agreement that this is the way to go? Because if you looked at it, Reuben Foster has a chance if he comes out, because look where he dropped. So he drops all the way from a projected top 10 pick all the way down in the lower half of the 1st round, and you take Jared Davis, who is safe. So many people are like, oh man, you missed out on maybe a guy that could be more talented and can help you much faster because of the fact that they don't want to pick guys with red flags.
I don't think it's just the red flags. I think as far as Reuben Foster goes, he has medical issues. He may need another surgery on his shoulder. So I think what Bob Quinn is trying to do is he's trying to maximize the value, especially in that 1st round. He wants to get the best player available that is going to come in and make an immediate impact on day 1. And I think you're right. He wants to set up a plug-and-play system, but the only way he can do that is he's got to build a foundation. If you look at what he stepped into last year, it wasn't a very good system. There were a lot of guys on this team. I mean, look, DeAndre Levy, we could go back and forth, and if you pull some of the tape from a year, maybe 2 years ago, DeAndre Levy was a foundational piece. This year, he looked at DeAndre Levy and said, hey, pack your bags, you're gone. You can't stay healthy. You can't stay on the field. We're not going to pay you this kind of money. We don't want you here. You got to go. And by doing that, essentially, he cut his nose despite his face, right? Because he now turned a linebacking core that was already thin into something that was anorexically thin. So now when this draft rolls around, he's got to go out and he ends up picking up linebacker after linebacker, hoping to sit there and help flesh it out. That being said, I like the linebackers that he picked up because I think they have versatility, they can play multiple positions, and they can do some different things, and we'll kind of break that down here as we kind of continue our discussion. But yes, I think you're right on. I think he's trying to develop a plug-and-play system. I think he's trying to get the best fit for this team, and I think character goes a long way. He doesn't want red flag guys, especially not early. And if you look at what they came out and they said last year about players with domestic violence issues, basically you have a domestic violence issue, they're probably not taking you. You have to be an exceptional talent, and you've got to prove that you're going to be worth that risk. And they're just not going to sit there and invest in you.
Overall, are the Detroit Lions better having taken this crop of talent? Yes. My overall thinking is, could they have been further along faster had they taken another group of players? I would say yes. But knowing where the Lions are at in terms of their cap, knowing who they're going to start spending some big-time money on, whether it be Matthew Stafford or Ezekiel Ansah, you have some guys that maybe are not going to command big-time money right away, and you can fit them and still be productive, which is how I'm viewing it. I'm feeling like, okay, where the Lions are at, they could be further along, where they maybe even could contend for an NFC title and get to the Super Bowl, maybe had they shored up the running back situation and taken one, or maybe address the defensive end before, round 6. And I say, okay, could they be further along with different players? Yes, you can say that. You can have that debate, and you can really look at who the Lions picked and be skeptical a little bit. But do I have confidence overall that this crop of players, there's going to be some guys that are going to be on the field in 2017 and making some plays? Yes. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the draft. It's just personally, I wish it would have been a little bit more sexy and a little bit more, talent laden, but all in all, I'm okay with it. I think when I looked at all the picks, 6 of 9 were focused on the defense. And all you can say with that is you hope that they develop. You hope that some of the concerns that have come out with Tease Tabor, with Kenny Galladay, with Jalen Reeves-Maybin, you hope that some of those concerns don't come to fruition. You don't want to have, Tease Tabor having receivers blow by him and having that word speed. When people talk about the Tigers, they talk about the bullpen, they talk about the wings, the goalies. I feel like whenever we talk about Tease Tabor, that word speed is going to be right there behind him. But Bob Quinn, I think, diffused it perfectly. He said, look, those numbers, fine. I know they were bad. I know that he had a horrible combine. I know that he even, tried to improve on his own pro day and got worse.
He ran slower at
his pro day, but he said, look, I looked at the game film, and that was enough. I looked at hours and hours, and that was enough for me to say, that's my guy. And that's all you have to say.
Almost 15 different videos.
That's all you have to say.
Kid. So that's a lot of game film.
So Tease Tabor is a pick in the second round that many people are looking at because of his 40 time, but Bob Quinn kind of diffused that. The other pick, though, that kind of had me scratching my head, but I do get it, is the tight end pick in the 4th round. Many people will debate and be skeptical and say, look, you have Eric Ebron, so you're going to be looking for a tight end because you want a red zone threat. You go out there, you get Michael Roberts, who scored a lot of touchdowns in his college career, can be a red zone target, but you had Jake Butt there, and I know that the injury, and it's come out that Bob Quinn was concerned about it, but that's a guy maybe that, when it all shakes out, might be better than Michael Roberts, and you don't want, to constantly play that game. That was the only pick that I kind of wrote a note down and said, no Jake Butt taken. You took Michael Roberts in the 4th round.
See, I don't mind the Michael Roberts pick because looking at his physicals, the guy's got monster hands and he can run a little bit faster than Jake Butt.
But Jake Butt played at a big-time school. Roberts didn't.
That's true. But I think overall, just looking at the way he is built physically, I think that's where the difference comes into play. I think he has physical attributes that put him a little bit ahead of a guy like a Jake Butt. And look, I was like, hey, Jake Butt's got to be the pick, right? If they're going to go tight end, it's got to be Jake Butt. They picked Michael Roberts. Then I'm like, okay, why Roberts? What makes him different than a guy like Jake Butt? You've seen what Jake Butt can do, and I think we all agree. We watch Jake Butt because he's in our area. He's the local team. You watch him on TV, so you know a lot about Jake Butt. And you think Jake Butt could be something special at the next level, and he probably would have been a second-round pick if he didn't blow out his knee during the bowl game. All right, so why Michael Roberts? Why Michael Roberts? Because the guy has different physicals. His physicals are totally intangible to Jake Butt. He's a bigger, faster guy with bigger hands. He's got a little bit more variation with his speed. He can do different things on his routes than Jake Butt. On top of it, the dude's a red zone target, so I don't have an issue with the Michael Roberts pick. The one that had me really scratching my head, and it wasn't even a pick so much, it was, I guess, the lack of a pick. It was the way they addressed their defensive line. You don't sit there and you don't pick a defensive lineman until the 6th round. It just has me going, what the hell are you doing? You got Ziggy Ansah, who was hurt last year, so that really hurt your pass rush. You had Kerry Hyder, who had a stellar year, and he kind of waned as the season went on. So besides those two guys, who do you got putting pressure on your quarterback? You don't address a defensive tackle or a defensive end at all. And it just really had me sitting there taking a step back saying, what is going on here? Why are we not sitting there putting some type of a resource earlier into this position? You don't sit there, you don't take anybody until the 6th round. And I'm just kind of like, what the heck is up here? On top of that, I really didn't care for the 7th round pick. Now it's the 7th round. I don't want to say it's a throwaway, but you're going to take a flyer on a guy. And I just didn't understand why you take a flyer on, what was it? It was Pat O'Connor is who I believe they ended up going with. Yeah, Pat O'Connor selected in the 7th round. This is a guy who you probably could have brought in as an undrafted free agent. He's a local kid. So why not bring him in? Sit there, take a flyer on somebody who has a higher upside. Maybe a little bit of a character issue. Maybe there's a little bit of a red flag there. But you sit there, you target somebody else who's got a higher upside than this guy. That's where I was kind of at a loss for what they did in this draft. Rounds 2 through 7, though, who was most intriguing to you? Who's the one guy who you're like, look, this draft could be make or break because of this player? Who's the one guy that you're kind of like, I like this pick, this draft sold me because of this guy?
Well, nobody in essence. But my thoughts.
That's how underwhelming this draft really was.
Yeah, exactly.
You basically summed it up right there. It was a very underwhelming draft.
Yeah, when I look at it, I say, okay, there are pros and cons to all these players. I mean, look at Kenny Galladay. Okay, you got a guy that many people are like, major project. You took him in the 3rd round. You took him with, a major pick there. Usually the picks in the top 3, you want some impact. And you go, a guy that's a project, a guy where the analysts go iffy on route running. Come on now, but he's got massive size. And if he gets in there.
Physicals, right?
He's got massive size. He's 6'4" and has a 4.5 speed. So he can come in there and be the 3rd wide receiver if you decide not to have Anquan Bolden. Jalen Reeves-Maben is another pick that many people are saying he's going to have the potential to do some things. And when I look at what Bob Quinn's doing, obviously he wants some versatility. Jalen Reeves-Maben can do a couple different things. Jamal Agnew, cornerback, that's one that I haven't looked at too much, but I hear all the intangibles that he's going to bring to the table alongside Darius Slay can also do some things. But I look at it and I say, okay, what's going to happen here? You're going to shore up the defense. You're going to continue to look at some of these undrafted free agents that they brought in that are also going to have some talent. And maybe, just maybe, you're going to get a couple more diamonds in the rough. But all in all, collectively, probably the picks, in the 6th round and the 7th round probably might not make the team and are going to struggle. But overall, if you hit on Tease Tabor, if you hit on Galladay, you hit on Reeves-Maben, and Michael Roberts that gives you at least 5 touchdowns in his rookie campaign, then you say it's an okay draft. And I think that's where we have to kind of change our thinking, is that they're not looking for home runs across the board. What Bob Quinn's looking for is a bunch of guys that get you doubles after doubles after doubles that'll score you runs. He's not looking for home run talent. He's looking for, hey, I want you to be consistent. And with a collective roster of 53 men that can hit a bunch of doubles and can be consistent, chip away at what we're looking for, that's how he wants to build a team. And so it's hard because, we're fans. We're not looking, we know, you and I, in our mindset, what it takes to win. Build on the trenches, build in this. But at the same time, we're fans, and we're looking at, on that draft day, what we're looking for, our expectation is, wow me, baby. Go out there and shock the world. Not that the Bears made the right pick and doing what they did, but they're the talk of the draft. We're still talking about, what the fuck did Chicago do going up to get Trubisky? What the hell are they doing? But
they basically mortgaged their future.
But everyone's talking about it. Everyone's buzzing about it. Whereas the line,
it's not good buzz, though, is it? Have you heard anything good about it?
But what I like about what the Bears did is, look, you may agree or disagree with what they did, but they put their nuts on the table. They're rolling the dice, and they put their chips all in. When a guy does that, when the general manager Pace does that of the Bears, you say to yourself, okay, he's tied his job, his future to this pick. I kind of like that. And whether I agree or not, I personally don't think Trubisky's going to be better than Matthew Stafford, but hey,
I feel like you can say that because it's not the Lions.
It's not the Lions.
Because Matt Millen has done stuff just like that in the past, and you wanted to hang him. You wanted to hang him from the top of the Silverdome when it was inflated.
Right, but as we're talking about this podcast, we're reviewing basically an average draft with a bunch of guys that are going to be projected to get a little bit better. They're not where they are. But had the Lions maybe packaged an Eric Ebron, maybe got back into the second round, took a Delvin Cook, or added a pick, or made a splash, or maybe just sprinkled in a rumor that one of the teams wanted Stafford and they were looking at a massive package and then never pull the trigger. Something of entertainment value in terms of what we're talking about.
So you want more sizzle. Instead, you got a ton of steak.
It was academic.
I got you.
This draft and the thesis and what Bob Quinn's going to do, purely academic. It's not going to be entertainment. I just wanted a little bit more pizzazz and entertainment personally. But overall, for the goodness of the team, hey, where the Lions have been, I'll take academic all day, all fucking day.
See, I think this draft, it's going to totally hinge on the Tease Tabor pick. If he becomes what Bob Quinn thinks he's going to become, he's a productive starter, he can force turnovers, I think this draft will look dramatically different. We'll sit back and we'll look at this draft and we'll say, wow, he nailed this one again. He sat there, he had a great draft on his first time around, he had an awesome draft his second time around. What's he going to bring to the table the third, the fourth, and the fifth draft? But if he misses on that Tease Tabor pick, I think it's going to be remembered a little bit like this, because you sat there and you passed on a guy like a linebacker like Raekwon McMillan, right?
Yep.
You could have really bolstered your linebacking core with him. If you add him and you pair him with Davis, you now have an inside and an outside backer, and McMillan can play that Sam backer, that strong side, and you sit there and you pair that with Davis, who's going to be your Mike. So now you've got two linebackers, and you just totally redid your entire linebacking core. Or you could have sat there and you could have went with a D tackle like a Delvin Thompson or Tomlinson. He can play inside, he can play outside. He's really similar to what A'Shawn Robinson is, and we both are fans of A'Shawn Robinson. On top of that, he's another Alabama D tackle. You sit there, you plug those guys in, you're going to get production out of them. You have a guy like a linebacker like Zach Cunningham. And again, you pair him with Davis, and again, you have an inside-outside backer combo. This one's going to play the will side, so he's going to be the weak side backer. Also, Cunningham can sit there and play up on the line, and he can rush the quarterback. He can do different things. You can trade him in, you can trade him out, you can put him up on the line, you can sit there, you can pull him back, and he can sit there and drop into zone coverage. He can do different things. And I think if you were to go out and get one of these linebackers, you now have just bolstered something that was totally, totally weak. And if you go out and you get a D tackle, you sat there, and this is a player who can, again, similar to what Ndamukong Suh was doing, playing inside and playing outside. Or, like you said, you could sit there, trade up, and go after a guy like a Mixon or a Cook. You can get that running back who appears to be special. Or you could have sat there and you could even traded back and got an extra pick or two, and you could have picked up a Kamara, a Hunt, or a Foreman, and on top of that, added a defensive lineman. So there are different things you could have done, but I think this second round, this entire draft, is going to hinge on the second round and what happens with Tease Tabor, whether or not he pans out.
Will the Lions regret not taking a running back? Because Bob Quinn had to answer for it. The media asked, like, okay, you've kind of improved the offensive line in free agency. You went out, you made a couple big signings. Now, that would lead most people to think that you're going to go and add a talented running back in a class like you previously described that was looked at as being talented. So he comes out and he says, look, I like my guys. And he comes out and he puts the stamp on and he says, look, Amir Abdullah's injuries are freakish. We like what Theo Riddick does. We like the role play, what guys like Zach Zenner, what Dwayne Washington bring to the table. So you got the four horsemen of the running back core for the Detroit Lions, and I look at it and I go, oh, hell no. You don't even got an Arn Anderson in that bunch. Right. You don't even have anything near a Ric Flair. And you're going to, tie your legacy to these four running backs? Oh, hell no. You could cut them all, and I'd be like, fine, start with, four undrafted guys, and I'd roll with that. But seriously, though, I could understand where he's coming from. He's like, look, I know these guys already versus what I don't know in some other guys. But in terms of what you see on film, Amir Abdullah doesn't seem to be an every down back. He doesn't seem to be the home run guy that's going to be the cemented piece of your offense.
He's not a guy who can run between the tackles.
I think he's going to regret the decision he made.
I think that's a big issue. Now, what do you give to the rumors that the Lions are being discussed about maybe getting a guy like a LeGarrette Blount in here? Now, LeGarrette Blount had a great season last year. His yards per carry were down, and he's on the other side of 30. So those are some red flags there. But again, this is a guy who is part of that Patriots offense. Bob Quinn has familiarity with him. If you can go out and you can get him on some type of a deal, say less than what was paid for Adrian Peterson, do you feel a little bit better about this running back stable now? Because you can have LeGarrette Blount be basically your smash him up guy. You're between the tackles. He's your first down back. He's your guy who's at the goal line.
Nice.
That's the guy.
That's the guy. That's the guy who would make everything better for you. Amir Abdullah can be your third down back. He can be your guy who's going to catch balls out of the backfield. He can do different things. Theo Riddick's a change of pace guy. And then you're going to have to probably lose Zenner or Washington, one or the other.
Lose Zenner, bring LeGarrette Blount, and you've upgraded it maybe 25%, and you can roll with that.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I think that if you were able to sit there, work out a deal for a guy like LeGarrette Blount, I don't think his style necessarily meshes well, but if you've got a good offensive coordinator, you can put together some type of a sub package for him, and you can work something out where you're either going to sit there, run him directly behind the quarterback and have Amir Abdullah, split out with like an offset eye or something. You can do different things with these packages, with these backs, and you can get some production out of them.
No doubt about it. It was fun, man. I think the draft. Now, I see a question on here that's very interesting. One that's a lot of people are kind of going back and forth in terms of you use the word grade. What would I grade this draft? Many people are saying, and I kind of agree, that it's hard to give a grade when you don't even see a guy in pads. You don't see how they're handling rookie mini camps and all that kind of stuff. So all in all, I'm in the team don't grade camp. But because you asked, and I will respect this, monstrosity of a question, I'll give it a C+, low B- because of the fact that it is kind of average, but not with a negative connotation. I give it that grade because of the fact that it's more heavily leaning towards incomplete. Because I want to see what these guys are going to do. How are they going to respond to the system? Are they going to be good guys? Are these guys going to, take advantage of the opportunities that they have? But I'm not a guy that likes giving grades. I like the fact that some people have said, well, in lieu of giving grades, what would you give? And they say, well, we could do pass-fail. We can talk about these guys. And I'm more along the lines of, I would say he inches into pass based on reputation, what Bob Quinn did. But there is room for skepticism, no doubt about it. I'm not jumping on the positivity train fully.
Isn't it weird how you sit there and you tend to lean towards a favorable grade because he had a really good draft last year?
Yeah.
Because I'm in the camp of giving it a B-, maybe a strong C. And the reason I say that is I look at this draft, and if I was Bob Quinn, this is probably how I would have approached this draft, all right? And you know how I like to sit there and I like to totally redo the Lions draft every single year? I didn't have to do that last year because I thought it was a solid draft. This year, I'm looking at it and I'm scratching my head because there were some moves that I probably would have done differently. In the first round, I probably would have took Charles Harris, the D-end out of Missouri. So now I've addressed and I've made my defensive line that much better, which in turn helps out my secondary. I would have came back in round 2 and I would have took Zach Cunningham, the linebacker, because again, linebacker was weak, right? You sit there, you get a guy who can sit there and do different things, play up on the line, play back in coverage. He can sit there. He's a multi-versatile linebacker who can sit there and help out this team immediately. On top of that, keeping the third-round trade that happened with the New England Patriots in place, I probably would have took Rasul Douglas, the cornerback out of West Virginia, or I would have came back with Cordera Tankersley, the cornerback out of Clemson. Both these guys are project cornerbacks. They need to sit there and they need to refine parts of their game. But again, you're helping out your secondary. Fourth round, I wouldn't touch. I like the additions. I think it was solid. Fourth round, I like what they did in the fourth round. I like how you sat there and you pick up a linebacker like Jalen Reeves-Maben. I also like the tight end. I think those two players are going to sit there and they're going to pay dividends, and I think you're going to get a lot of production out of them, especially in the fourth round. I'm fine with Agnew. I think he adds speed and he adds depth at the cornerback position. On top of that, he's going to come in. He's going to be able to play some special teams, possibly work on returning punts. So he's a speedster. If everything ends up working out, if anything, you got a nickel cornerback, and I think that's cool. Again, I like taking a quarterback late in the draft, so your 6th round I'm cool with. 7th round, I would have sat there, would have rolled the dice on a high upside guy, maybe somebody with some red flags, just to see what you can get out of him, or I would have took the best wide receiver possible and sat there and went that way. So I'm kind of in this area where I want to give Bob Quinn the credit for the work that he's done in the past, but looking at this draft, I'm just sitting there scratching my head a little too much. So I can't give it a total A+ or a strong B. I'm going to give it a low B, high C grade. And again, that's based on reputation on what he's done before.
Ooh, the draft, though, was a fun night to watch. It was awesome. I watched a lot of it, probably a lot more than I did in the previous 2 years. And all in all, I thoroughly enjoyed the entire presentation, all the trolling that was done. The only thing I would say that I would improve is you got to prep some of these guest presenters because some of them look lost. They didn't know how to spell.
Oh, dude, they get their own team names wrong.
Yeah, so it was quite the interesting thing.
How do you spell Jets, by the way?
Yeah, Jete, baby.
Yeah,
you know it.
Come on.
So that was quite funny. Hell, did you see what Don Carey did of the Lions? He got Kenny Galladay wrong and the school name.
Yes.
I was like, come on.
It's from
man.
Northwestern, and that's Kenny Galloway. What?
It's really important because it's these guys.
It's reading, man. It's all reading.
And it's these guys' big moment. Imagine it's your big moment. You're working your whole life to get there, and some guy that you don't even know butchers your name and your school. Man, that's embarrassing. You got to do a lot better job. But overall, I give the draft an A+. They just got to do more things like it because, whoo, baby, if drafts are going to be like that in the future with the energy and passion and the trolling that was going on, it'll be must-see TV. It was awesome.
The one thing I can say, Philadelphia did a great job with it.
A+.
I thought they did an exceptional job presenting this and hosting it. Phenomenal job. So Philadelphia, I give you an applause. I don't need to see monkeys or I don't need to see pets or animals making draft picks. I really don't. I can do without all that.
I missed that. I'm lucky I missed that.
Yeah, not. You don't need any of it.
All right, let's take our first time out. Great draft talk, bro. It was great. I look forward to talking more about football and the draft as mini camps arise. And you know you can look to Doc and Jock to bring the noise and to talk about football. You know that. Let's take our first time out. Come back with the Doc and Jock Pro Wrestling Report, Jocks in Session, and some Tigers talk to round out this very fine podcast. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. All right, Adam, let me talk to you about Podomatic, our host site. Since we started this project in 2013, we've only used one host site to upload all our podcasts. When we first started this project, and like I've said many times, one of the things that was super important was finding a host site to put all our audio that could be used quickly, user-friendly, and able to put all our information across the interwebs. And one of the first things I did when Adam and I started talking about doing a podcast was figuring out how to get rid of Adam, but that didn't work out. But what did work out was going to Podomatic.com. If you go there, trust me, it's a great user-friendly host site. And we've been with them exclusively since 2013. And one of the reasons why is that from the time we record this to the time we upload it, it takes no time. And sometimes you scour the landscape and you hear about technical difficulties. And I wanted to remove that as soon as possible. And by working with Podomatic.com, it's been a great experience. Imagine if we did all this work bloviating about the Lions draft, and then we went to put up our audio and it wasn't there. We'd be pissed. And I don't want to hear Jock yelling at me or complaining about my side of things when he does such a great job with this podcast. So I wanted to make sure when we decided on a host site, it had to be one that we could stand behind. And that's one, Podomatic.com. If you're looking to start a new podcast, that's where we recommend you go, Podomatic.com.
Welcome back to the Doc and Jock Wrestling Report. So this past weekend, we did have a Raw pay-per-view, and I'm not sure about many of you, but I sure as hell didn't watch this. I'll be honest with you. They did a horrible job promoting this. It was up until the last moment that you even realized we had a wrestling pay-per-view going on this week. The one guy who I do know did watch this and did tune into it, and look, this pay-per-view is getting mixed reviews all over the place. So the one guy to go to is the Doc.
When you look at names of pay-per-views, there's some good ones. Royal Rumble, Survivor Series, WrestleMania. This one is apropos, though. WWE Payback. Pay me back my money. Oh, my gosh. If there ever was a time where I said the $9.99 wasn't worth it, overall, though, I want to say this. The pay-per-view had the potential to be great. And there were some positives. There were some highlights. I want to start with the highlights because we'll keep it positive here for a few moments before we talk about where this pay-per-view went off the rails. The Hardy Boys and their match versus Cesaro and Sheamus was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I liked their chemistry. And I thought when it ended, when the Hardy Boys were victorious, I thought, oh man, here we go again with Sheamus and Cesaro doing this whole nice guy thing. And, it just kind of seemed like, oh, what a kind of terrible way to kind of put down Sheamus and Cesaro. But they come back and they destroy the Hardy Boys.
It's a super physical match. Jeff Hardy lost a tooth.
Yep, and they turn heel. Sheamus and Cesaro turn heel, and they destroy the Hardy Boys, and that's how you keep a feud going. So the work there was great. It was a great match, and I really enjoy kind of where the Hardy Boys are kind of going to, and we'll talk about that shortly. And again, a feud probably that will go down as a pretty good one. It may have ended based upon what we saw on SmackDown Tuesday night, but the United States Championship match is really, when you look at it, the feud between Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho is what wrestling has been built on. It's made like from going back to the Mega Powers when Hulk Hogan and Macho Man kind of became friends, had a long run, and then Miss Elizabeth got in the way and they turned and they had a great bout at WrestleMania 5, I believe. and you look at it and you say, wow, can Chris Jericho and Kevin Owens have an extended feud like this and put on great matches? Well, hell yeah, they can. And it was nice to see because people were surprised, in essence, because all the dirt sheets had Chris Jericho losing that match and just being done right there at Payback. But he ends up with the win, and they told a great story. Whenever those two guys wrestle, it kind of stinks that it looks like the feud's going to come to an end with what we saw on SmackDown. I could see this feud going all the way up until the Survivor Series if you wanted to add it. If Jericho was going to stick around, you could add so many layers to it with each other, costing each other belts, opportunities, promos. This could have been a year-long feud that could have culminated in an epic match, but that match, Payback, was decent. So the match is gaining momentum. You had the women's title change hands, you had good situations, and then you look at it and then you go, what made this pay-per-view go off the rails? And you have a crowd that's excited. They're looking for the payoff when you build up a feud. And when you build up a feud, you want the payoff. You want the match to be great. You want it to be a memorable end to a feud that you've built up. And when you have a feud built up from Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt, you don't do a video package, whatever you call it. You don't do that to the fans. You pay it off in the ring. And to do it doubly, to have a House of Horrors match in some rickety old rental that you threw out there, it just came off flat and it halted the entire momentum of the pay-per-view because you've seen it. Why rip off, TNA Total Deletion? Why rip that off? That's not how you pay off that feud. You pay off that feud by having Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton steal the show, go back and forth, and hell, have a 45-minute match where there's ups and downs, twists and turns, and you can even do some weird things, but in the ring, in front of the fans. But to do it there and then in the ring, it just didn't come off right, and it kind of killed the momentum of the whole show.
Let me ask you this. Would this have been better if they sat there, they started the entire pay-per-view with this match?
No.
And what they did, but wait, listen. If they started it with this match, and what they did were during the lulls, the slow parts between matches, when they're getting the ring ready, when they're doing different things, if they sat there and they cut to this match, and this was kind of the filler, the bridge to get you from one match to another, and it all ends up culminating inside the ring. Instead of it just being a video package of you seeing Bray Wyatt and you see Randy Orton sitting there struggling and fighting around inside this dilapidated house with dolls and different things just kind of strewn about. If you sat there, you started the pay-per-view, maybe even in the pre-show, with them kind of meeting up and them kind of getting this match underway, and then between matches on the pre-show, you show live cut-ins, and then from there, you just kind of work your way, and you just kind of salvage the good parts of this match, and you're showing them almost as highlights to get you from one part to the other part, and in the end, you've got this match finishing at the arena in the ring.
See, I understand the name of the company, World Wrestling Entertainment. But what draws me as a fan is the wrestling, not the entertainment angles. This kind of stuff, these kind of matches.
Unless you got Trish Stratus walking around in her bathing suit.
We could be entertained by that.
Yes.
But that was not entertaining to me. Whether some people liked it, whether you agree that that's something out of the box that you got to change up, I watch it for the wrestling. I watch it for the stories that these guys tell in the ring. And I think you could have paid it off with two talented guys. You got to remember, Bray Wyatt is the son of IRS. Randy Orton is the son of Bob Orton, and Bob Orton's family wrestled as well. So he's a third-generation wrestler, I believe. And so to have that end that way kind of diffused. Now, it was great. At least you had, Bray Wyatt win the rivalry, and you continue to evolve Jinder Mahal being a bad dude. That's fine. But in terms of that setup, I'm just not a fan personally. But the pay-per-view was salvaged. If you just want to do what most people do is highlight and go through the pay-per-view and start scrolling to the good stuff, just go right to the end and watch. If you're not a fan of Roman Reigns, Braun Strowman destroys him. And it was awesome to see the fans cheer, "Thank you, Strowman." It was awesome to see the destruction of Roman Reigns. And if that's what you're into, then it'll salvage the pay-per-view. But all in all, collectively, you can pass on it. You can miss it.
I want to talk to you about this. Do you think it would be wise for WWE at this point? We've seen baby faces before that were bad guys. Stone Cold Steve Austin was essentially a baby face, but he was a bad dude, right? Because he sat there and he just wasn't your prototypical white meat baby face. He was a fan favorite, but he did it his way. He did it the Stone Cold Steve Austin way. Do you think it would be wise for them to turn Strowman into a babyface, but not a white meat babyface, to sit there and just basically be this monster that went ahead and just just wreaked havoc and destruction on people, but did it his way and possibly turn Roman Reigns into a heel. And he doesn't have to necessarily be a heel per se, where he's a bad guy, but he just does it, I guess, not so much like the Triple H way where you know he's not a babyface, but just kind of is just this antagonist doing whatever it is that he wants to do. And in the end, you're going to have them meet up at least one more time. I see, in my vision, I would have Strowman being this babyface that would almost do it the way Stone Cold Steve Austin did it, and I would have Roman Reigns being this antagonist that just came out and just provoked the fans, and because he's already underneath their skin. They can't stand him. I mean, when a dude is getting just brutalized in the middle of the ring by another guy with stairs and just getting annihilated, and the fans are screaming, "Thank you, Strowman," obviously they can't stand you. So just come out and antagonize them some more. Get wins the cheap way. You don't have to sit there and look, Roman Reigns, I don't care what you say, whether you like him, whether you dislike him. The guy can wrestle inside of the ring. He's not John Cena. He can sit there and he can carry a match and he can do his own. So if you have him come out, you get cheap wins, you sit there, you get cheap pops, do what you got to do, but just have them kind of almost do a double turn. And I think that would be awesome. And I think that would be a good way to sit there and continue this feud and kind of carry both of these characters on and really sit there and start to add some layers to them and really flesh their characters out.
There's nothing to disagree with that statement. So now you have the pay-per-view that kind of failed to deliver in its entirety, and then you carry it over to Monday Night Raw, which, again, the situation where you have angles set up with 2, 3, 4 wrestlers is getting played out. You can tell stories with all these guys that are in the main event. You can tell stories with Dean Ambrose, Mike the Miz Mizanin. You can tell stories with Finn Balor. You can tell stories with these high-end wrestlers that you have without having them all come to the ring to set up the story. It takes too much time. What you just got to do is just set it up where they come into, start talking about their angles and start talking about what's going on. But to have Seth Rollins come and then you start laying out the program, you can't kill 15 minutes of a show talking. My overall thoughts on Raw were it was a good show after the pay-per-view. It started to set up the next pay-per-view and the next set of feuds, but I think you and I are in agreement that nobody wants to see The Miz and Dean Ambrose carry over whatever the hell they were doing on SmackDown onto Raw. But I like the fact that they're introducing, the possibilities of some matchups with Finn Balor and The Miz, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, how they're, kind of matching up and kind of teasing their old history and where that might end up. Raw was okay. It was entertaining. But like I've said in previous podcasts, what you're seeing is you got to do a little bit more to elevate the mid-card, because most people, I don't think right now, are invested in the guys that you're putting out there from the cruiserweights, from some of the tag teams that you got going on. You got great main event stuff, but you can't build a show from 10:30 to 11 and just on Braun Strowman. You just have to, at the same time, kind of elevate some of these mid-card guys, tell some other kind of stories. And the women, again, it's nice, but I'm not down to see these kind of feuds with Alexa Bliss and all that. It's just not interesting enough to me. And so I'm looking at Raw and saying to myself, it could have been better, but you just got to get back to good storytelling wrestling and stop with these 20-minute promos trying to introduce all these kind of new angles.
See, I thought Raw was really, really boring this week. I felt like it was, again, lazy booking, lazy storytelling. Your best match was that triple threat match with The Miz, Seth Rollins, and Finn Balor. And just by mentioning those guys, you can tell it's going to be a good match. Look, Miz is probably one of the best heels you got going in the industry right now.
It's nice he's getting a great push for all the work he's done.
He cuts great promos. The thing I don't need to see is I don't need to see him battle Dean Ambrose again. I've already seen it. I've seen it on SmackDown. I've seen it for like 6 months. I know how this is going to end. You're going to end up taking the strap off of Dean Ambrose and it's going to go on The Miz. And that's fine, but I don't need to see it again. And it's nice to see that the Intercontinental Championship is being featured prominently. But again, you need a belt on your programming. And does anybody know where Brock Lesnar is? Doesn't he have to wrestle every 30 days to keep his belt current? Isn't that how this works? It's funny how you sit there and you bend and you twist the rules for the guys that you like. You know what I'm saying? And it just, again, this goes back to WWE politics, which pissed me off because you haven't seen the beast incarnate in I don't know how long. I don't even know what he's doing, and he's not going to wrestle for almost 90 some days. it just screams BS and politics to me, and I absolutely can't stand it. But yeah, that was probably your best match of the night. And you're right. I don't need to see these women all in the ring, sitting there ganging up on each other and punching each other and doing whatever. The women's division is brutal right now. What you got going is you got Alexa Bliss, who's interesting, and she does a good job as a heel. You got Sasha Banks, who people are still invested in, and that's starting to wane. You got Bayley, who I think it has waned. And then after that, you've just got broads. I really would like to see them really develop and give Emma a push. I think she could be solid. After that, I don't care. You've got nobody that I care about. And this goes back to how Bob Quinn's building this Lions football team. You can't just do it with a quarterback and a defensive end, and you can't just do it with a quarterback, a defensive end, and a wide receiver. You need a whole bunch of guys who can sit there and hit doubles for you to keep you entertained, right? You need to, like you said, you need to elevate those mid-card guys, those guys, those cruiserweights. You need to find somebody who's interesting, maybe 2 or 3 guys who are interesting. Start to push them, build programs around those guys, because it's hard. It is really hard to get through a 3-hour Raw. It is a struggle. I find myself just sitting there doing other things around the house, just having it on as background noise, because I know I've got to get through it and I've got to digest as much of it as possible so I can come on here and have an actual interesting conversation with you about what is very uninteresting on this program. That leads me to this point. The best thing that they've got going right now on Raw is probably the fact that we're going to get the Broken Hardys, or we'll at least get Broken Matt Hardy, because it sounds like they want to push Jeff in a separate in a separate situation and give him a main event title run. All right, but you're going to get Broken Jeff or Broken Matt Hardy, and it sounds like a deal is done, if not almost done. And that being said, you've seen Matt tease it as they ran to the ring to sit there and address Sheamus and Cesaro. This I have major concerns about, because I see the lazy booking, I see the lazy writing, I see them trying to do what they were trying to do with this whole House of Horrors match, which was just a total fail and a total flop. And they were trying to draw off of, like you said, the final deletion that Matt Hardy did and got over. If you're going to do the Broken Hardys, and I hope that you do, because it is so over. I've never seen something so over in wrestling like this, not since Hulkamania. You've got to let Matt Hardy take a lot of the creative control for it.
Delete!
It's glorious.
You like that?
I do. It's glorious. Or what? What did he say? He's just yes. It just the little nuances that Matt Hardy does with it. You need to let him take control. You got to give him the ball and let him roll with it. Let him have final say over this character. And I know that's difficult for Vince McMahon, because he's a control freak. He's got to have final say on everything. But if you want this character to continue, and you see the reaction with the crowd, when you've got an entire stadium sitting there giving you the delete hand signal, it's over. It is so over. So don't ruin it. Don't ruin the golden egg.
No doubt about it. I think that we're all curious to see how WWE is going to handle it. Are they going to have a blend of Matt Hardy and Broken Matt Hardy? But I'm interested too. I'm interested because I think smart marks are going to be well aware of what's going on with this character, and they're going to nitpick, and they're going to be very critical of what's going on with that project. But all in all, Raw is okay. They need to spice it up going into the next pay-per-view, where I think the rumors are Brock Lesnar is going to defend the title, whether it be against Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, whoever's next, is going to be a good matchup. SmackDown, I'll be honest, I passively watched it. I was excited to see Chris Jericho on there. I thought maybe they would extend his run by maybe 2 or 3 weeks, but they squashed that rivalry in terms of Kevin Owens destroying Chris Jericho on that show. You had the opening segment was pretty cool with AJ Styles coming in and introducing himself back to Chris Jericho, but he got banned from the final match. You had an overall decent show. I like the fact that Jinder Mahal is getting a push, but in essence, when somebody gets a push, you know somebody's getting demoted. And to see a hard worker like Sami Zayn struggle to get wins is kind of weird. I'm like, oh man, Sami Zayn's a jobber now. And I'm like, oh man, the guy wrestles hard. You think he deserves a little bit of a push, but right now, Sami Zayn's stock is probably the lowest that it has ever been in his career.
Do you feel like he maybe pissed Vince off? He rubs somebody the wrong way. How is a guy this talented, this over with the crowd? Like, everybody loves Sami Zayn, right? He is a good babyface, and yet he gets zero traction. He goes out there and he just picks up L's left and right, left and right. And you're right, it's great to see Jinder get a push. I find that to be super interesting. And that's one of those things where it kind of keeps me going with the whole SmackDown brand. I'm like, all right, well, what's going to happen with Jinder now? I like it. I think it's good. But yeah, Sami Zayn, poor Sami Zayn, right? I mean, it's not good. Not good at all. And AJ Styles introducing himself, you're right, to Chris Jericho, I thought that was interesting. I thought that was fun. And to see him go after Kevin Owens, I thought was great. And that creates a interesting storyline because now you've got Kevin Owens, you've got AJ Styles. I find it weird that AJ Styles, the guy who was the face of SmackDown for almost an entire year, is now not in the title championship picture. You got a guy like a Jinder Mahal. And well, secondary titles are getting a huge push recently on the WWE brands. So it looks as though, AJ Styles will be fighting for the U.S. Championship. And I don't know, does the U.S. Championship beat the WWE Championship? I don't know. Whatever, it just seems like that's the direction they're going in right now, where all the secondary titles are getting monster pushes. I do like to see AJ Styles wrestle Kevin Owens. I think that's going to be a very interesting matchup. It's obvious Chris Jericho's time with WWE, this run is now over. They did a good job booking that so he can be out with his injuries until he decides he wants to come back. He's going to be touring with Fozzy. They will be in, I believe, Grand Rapids, and I believe they'll be in the Flint area. So if you're interested in checking out Fozzy, you can sit there and check out their dates. Chris Jericho will be in the area touring with them, so that'll be cool. Something interesting to see.
Raw, I think, is coming to Eastern Michigan on the 22nd, I think.
Raw's?
Yeah, I think so. I think Raw's coming back to Michigan, is going to do a show for one of the first times at Eastern Michigan. Check it out.
Wow, that'll be something interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, check it out. And then, I think both of us are in the same boat. We just want a little bit more. We want to see a little bit more creativity, a little bit more entertainment in terms of the wrestling, because post-WrestleMania, you're starting to feel a lull a little bit. But there are still main event guys that are still bringing the juice in terms of Braun Strowman, AJ Styles, and a guy that I think is poised to have a breakout year in the second half of 2017 is Finn Balor. Dude has it. It's just something you know when you see it. When the guy comes to the ring, when he does even a weak promo on a pay-per-view, on a Miz TV section, you see that I want to look at Finn Balor. I want to see what he's talking about. But the problem is, though, I need Finn Balor plus 75 pounds. The dude is too small.
No, dude, I like him tiny like that. I do. Dude,
you can't sell Finn Balor, Brock Lesnar. You cannot with that side. He's too small.
When he's the Demon
I think
King.
Mike Miz said it perfectly, and it's a point that everybody's talking about.
This is the problem with
he's
WWE.
Too small. He's too small.
This is the problem with WWE, though.
You can't have
Everybody's got to be a damn bodybuilder.
But you have a whole crew of them. You have Jinder Mahal, Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton.
Look, Jinder's on roids.
Guys.
I'm going to say it. Jinder's on roids.
Yeah.
He's starting to get bitch tits. Look at it. You can see it. He's got some puffy nips.
He's on roids.
That's roids.
But you remember the UFC when they would just put these big 500-pound guys against these little 180-pound guys, and that's why you have divisions. But for Finn Balor to go up against Brock Lesnar, it's going to look weird. You can't have Braun Strowman versus Finn Balor. It doesn't look right.
You can have the Demon. Okay, here's the thing. There is something special about Finn Balor's entrance when he's the Demon King, okay? When he comes out all painted up and he's totally spooky.
That's top-notch. I'm not talking about that.
It is great. It is great. And you can sell that. The thing is, I have an issue with Lesnar being your champion because Lesnar does not like to do anything but his 3 power moves, and that's all he does. So you're going to put him into the ring with a guy who's an artist like Finn Balor is. It's going to be a bad match. It's not going to work. This is what's going to happen. You're going to have some type of a transitional champion that gets that belt off of Lesnar and then let Finn go in and take it. And that's what you're going to do. And do you see them maybe moving Finn into a more of a darker, serious, maybe a heel persona?
For sure.
Getting him away from that face persona?
No doubt about it. To your point, Brock Lesnar has earned it, dude. When he came out on Raw, I screamed my head off, and he didn't do nothing. He just showed up there.
Dumb Mark.
Dude, it was awesome. What are you kidding me? I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool that a guy that big and that presence is awesome. I'm not a Mark.
And that
Mark.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a Mark.
That guy who doesn't say anything,
He's
can't
earned
cut
it.
a promo.
Hey, he's earned it.
What? How did he earn it?
Hey, in this time...
He was a part-timer when he was a full-time wrestler, and then he went and he did UFC stuff, and he got popped for steroids there, and then he can't sit there and he can't do any more UFC stuff, and he wasn't even good at that, so now he's going to come back here and wrestle, and he's a super part-timer now.
Okay, let's tease it. I think we can have a debate on the worth of Brock Lesnar and talk about it next week, something for our listeners and supporters to look forward to. I can make an argument that Brock Lesnar is a guy that you can even build a company around, even if he wrestles once every 90 days.
Okay.
I can make that argument.
Okay.
We'll have it. We'll have it. The argument.
We'll debate that.
We'll debate that. All right.
I'm writing it down on the show sheet right now.
No doubt about it. All right, let's transition to Jock Jams. I got a lot of things on my mind, and you definitely have to give me some sports relief in what we call Jock Jams. All right, cuz, obviously when we looked at the NFL Draft, a program that got a great deal of recognition in terms of the vast number of players that they put into the NFL was Michigan. What does it mean to a program like Michigan to have 11 athletes picked in the 2017 NFL Draft?
I think what you're starting to see is they have a coach, and he is able to take players that weren't his recruits and turn them into something that was worth a damn. Having 11 guys go in the NFL Draft says a ton about your program. It helps you with the recruiting going forward. On top of that, you're competing against a national power like in Alabama who had 10. And I think that says a lot about where a program has come from. If you remember when Michigan State was riding super high, they were sitting there pumping draft picks into the NFL Draft left and right. And you've seen what that did for their program. Now, they've fallen on some hard times, and maybe we can get around to maybe next week talking about what's going on with Michigan State, because right now it seems like it's a total dumpster fire in East Lansing. But for Michigan to be able to put 11 draft picks into the NFL Draft, I think that bodes well for the program. I think it puts them on that same type of a playing field in that echelon as in Alabama. And look, Michigan hasn't had the success yet that Alabama's had, but I think in due time it will come.
Do you think that in 2016, that as a result of having all this talent, obviously NFL caliber talent, that Michigan maybe, when you look back at it, underachieved? Because you had some great talent, but you still had a team that walked away with 3 losses and again finished third place in their division.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, though, those 3 losses came by a combined 5 points. But if you had a better offense, or you had a different way to utilize a talent like a Jabril Peppers, you would have been able to overcome that. In the end, you had 3 losses. You are what your record says you are. And you know what? You weren't good enough to get in the playoff. And you weren't good enough to win the Big Ten. So, yes, totally underachieved last season. But I think going forward, it screams good things for this program. I think this program will be much better this season coming up, even though you did lose 11 guys. I think they can retool on the fly, and I think you're going to see a much better Michigan product. And as we move forward, and as we move more into Jim Harbaugh getting his guys in and getting his, like, you got to remember too, he hasn't had his quarterback. Who's been his quarterback? Is Wilton Spaeth his quarterback? I think he's kind of a guy that they've tooled the offense around because he's there. You know, you look at Jake Rudock, again, a guy that they tooled the offense around because he was the most ready and most well-equipped to be able to handle what they wanted to do. So I think it's going to be much better as this program moves forward. As you get into year 4, I think you're going to see a dramatic difference.
Let's take a look at the NHL Draft Lottery. You know, many people were thinking the Red Wings should have tanked. Man, do you know how close they were to earning the number 1 pick? One last number combination at the end, and the Red Wings would have earned the number 1 pick, but it didn't happen. They entered the NHL Draft Lottery with the 6th worst overall record, but they ended up now, they're going to be drafting 9th. So in essence, who was one of the big losers in the NHL Draft Lottery? Your Detroit Red Wings. The New Jersey Devils, who had the 3rd worst record, will get the 1st overall pick. So when you look at it with what the Red Wings had to endure, basically, you know, thinking that they were going to be around the 5th or 6th pick, dropping to 9th, do you think the system is flawed at all, and are there ways to improve it?
I do not like the way the NHL draft is set up. I don't like the lottery system. There are tweaks that can be made to make this much, much better. Okay, and the way I would go about this, the bottom 10 teams would be allowed in the lottery. Currently, it's the bottom 15 teams. All right, so your first 3 lottery winners will get the picks 1, 2, or 3, and then after that, it goes from worst to first. So what that means is, if you're in the top, if you're in the bottom 10, you're going to have a chance to sit there and elevate your stock into one of those first 3 positions. After that, if you're not part of the lottery and you don't win either 1, 2, or 3's draft pick, it now goes based upon your record all the way through up until you get to the playoff teams. All right. There's no reason that a team with the 13th worst record is drafting 2nd in your NFL draft. And that's the Philadelphia Flyers. That's a team who sat there and elevated themselves from basically being in playoff contention up until the final week, and now they're drafting second. How does that bode fair for everybody else when a team like Colorado, who couldn't muster any wins this season, they had 48 points on the year, and now they're going to be drafting fourth. They're drafting behind the Philadelphia Flyers. How does that work out? I do not like the way the lotto system is set up. I don't think it works, and it does not make for parity in the league. That's the one thing you can say about the NFL. That's why everybody loves the NFL, because there's parity everywhere. A team like your Detroit Lions, every single season has a possibility, if they do the right things, to sit there and compete with a team like a Green Bay Packers, compete with a team like a New England Patriots, to sit there and be able to compete with teams that go on and play in the Super Bowl. The way the NHL is set up, it's kind of a luck-based system. I do not like it. I don't think it helps create balanced playing fields for teams. Look, if you suck and you're bad, you should have the availability to sit there and get your franchise turned around and get your team better. Look, the Maple Leafs sucked for 10 years, and now you're starting to see some of the fruits of that labor of just being awful. But they had to sit there and they had to win the draft lottery a couple of times. And you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins and you look at the Chicago Blackhawks. Both of those teams were absolute dumpster fires for years. There's no way that you come away with a Jonathan Taves and a Patrick Kane just in one draft. It just doesn't happen like that. So you got to suck for a long time. You got to be lucky enough to sit there and win the draft lottery, or at least be able to pick in the top 3 to really change your fortunes in the NHL. And then after that, it's just good drafting and sitting there making good, timely moves. I don't like the lotto system because I think what ends up happening is you end up rewarding teams that are either in playoff contention or don't necessarily deserve to sit there and be drafting in those top 3, while you penalize teams like a Colorado Avalanche team who was just absolutely abysmal this year. I mean, they're drafting outside the top 3. There's no reason that should be happening. This team couldn't sit there and get W's to save their lives.
Switching gears, talking about the NBA, in an article that I found at newarena.com, they went back, similar to what you like to do, they went back to the 2011 NBA draft, and they redrafted it. And the first overall pick was, obviously, Kawhi Leonard, who goes number 1. Some current Detroit Pistons were also redrafted. Pistons forward Tobias Harris goes number 11 to Golden State. Reggie Jackson goes 9th to the Charlotte Bobcats. Which leads us to the question, why were the Pistons so ineffective this year, and do you think they can win if the core group of Andre, Reggie, and Tobias Harris sticks together?
They obviously should be a much better team than what they are, especially with this redraft. I think this redraft proves that this team needs to grow by leaps and bounds going into next season. That being said, I think a huge issue here is the guy who's going 9th in this redraft to the Charlotte Bobcats. Look, Reggie Jackson is a polarizing player. He's got all the talent in the world. He shows that he could be a leader. And then you got him sitting there arguing with his teammates, not taking responsibility, and not always doing what's best for the team. He sometimes puts self in front of team, and that ends up leading to just dysfunction on the Detroit Pistons. And this is a guy who you gave a huge contract to. This is a Stan Van Gundy guy. He sat there, went out, targeted Reggie, said, I like him. He's got a little bit of an attitude. He thinks he should be a number 1 point guard in the NBA. So I'm going to bring him here. I'm going to give him all this money, and I'm going to say, hey, this is your team. Go lead it. Well, those leadership skills have been tested, and sometimes he fails the test. And I think that's a huge issue with this team. I like Tobias Harris. I think Tobias Harris is a very good player. I think he's a guy who should be starting in this league. I think he's a versatile player. He can sit there and he can play multiple positions for different teams, and he should be playing multiple positions for this team. He allows you the ability to either go big or to go small, and he can do different things like hit outside shots, and he can play inside and bang. So I think what you need to do is you have to figure out what's going to happen with Reggie Jackson. Is he the player that you want him to be, and is he a guy that you're going to be able to build going forward with? I don't know if you're going to be able to sit there and unload a guy like an Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond has to work on different things, whether it be his free throw shooting, whether it means getting tougher mentally, or whether it means just coming up with new skill sets down low to sit there and help elevate your game. Andre Drummond's going to have to sit there and transform himself, while Reggie Jackson's going to need to just either A, get some leadership skills, or B, get moved out of here. And you're going to have to get something back in return for him. And it doesn't necessarily need to be a lot. Sometimes there's an addition by subtraction, and it might just be Reggie Jackson's got to go.
Great round of Jock Jams. All the things I wanted to know about in the sports world outside of what we're talking about has been addressed. Good stuff, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Let's take our final timeout, come back, talk about the Detroit Tigers, some positivity, some concerns as well. Stay with us. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc here. I want to tell you about one of our longtime sponsors, Fanatic U. If you're looking for some sweet sports swag, you have to check out Fanatic U. They got several locations all across Metro Detroit. If you're a fan of the Tigers, Red Wings, Lions, Pistons, all the college teams, check out fanaticu.com, one of the premier online stores. All the stores in town are doing great things, selling great sports swag. They're the official outfitter of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network, and they've been a longtime supporter. We greatly appreciate those who support us, and all that we ask is go check out our sponsors, visit those who support us, and help keep us broadcasting independently. We always want to say thanks to one of our fine sponsors. Check out fanaticu.com. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for sticking with us. We appreciate all the support that we've been getting. Something new, we launched a campaign. You've asked for it, and so we've responded. You can check out all the campaigns at DetroitSportsPodcast.com. We're selling some fun t-shirts. Adam has done some great work. And all we're trying to do is help keep this project rolling along. And we're just trying to provide you with the things that you've asked for. So check it out on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. You can follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. From time to time, we'll have these campaigns where we'll have some fun t-shirts, good logos, good nicknames, good fun, all in good fun to help the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Just a little bit of creativity, sit there and we're trying to give you something and you give us something and just kind of help keep this project rolling along. You can also check it out on our Facebook page as well as our Twitter account.
The Detroit Tigers playing well versus the Cleveland Indians. And after a 12-12 month, people are still talking about some of the concerns, the warts, things that are making them nervous. You know, they're starting to look at some of the high ERA numbers when your bullpen has an ERA north of 6 collectively. People are nervous. And despite what Alex Avila may tell you that, you know, all the constant bitching is wearing on them, it definitely deserves to. You got to step it up. You got to perform, which they have been, which is a good thing. And the theme of the Tigers talk for us needs to be a little bit positive in that they weathered the injuries in April. They're playing well right now. They've at least got 2 games versus Cleveland, and they've already won 4 games versus Cleveland in 2017, when in all of 2016, they won 4 games versus their division rival. So, hey, with all those injuries, with some of the things that have happened, other squads would have collapsed. So far, it's looking like this is a resilient team that's going to battle. Now, does that mean they're going to have success? Likely in the end, I'm going to say no, because the warts and the challenges are going to be too tough. But along the way, they're going to have periods of time where they're going to play some good baseball. And when you get a thumper back like Miguel Cabrera, and he comes back in his first game, and he smashes a home run, I say to myself, look, keep battling. See where the chips may fall. I like the fact that this team battles. Now, do I think that it is in their best interest to keep doing this? No. I like a little bit when they struggle. I like when they take these, 4-game losing streaks and extend them out a little bit. And because in the end, I think in the best interest of the ball club, it would serve them to lose and tank and destroy this team at the trade deadline. But with the story as it lies, I'm sticking with them, and I'm enjoying the ride.
Who are you?
I'm a fan of the Tigers, but I think that winning is not helping them.
That does not sound like a fan at all.
It's a fan.
No way. Look, do you realize what an aberration last year was when they sat there and they could not get wins against Cleveland? Already this year.
It's good.
Already this year. You've already said it. They've got as many wins this season as they had last year, and they're having a chance to sit there and basically turn the tables on Cleveland. Cleveland is the one team in this division that everybody points to and says, hey, this is the team that you got to sit there and you got to be able to overcome and you got to be able to beat them. And you know what? They've sat there and they've been able to do that. Miguel Cabrera sat there and went down with a couple injuries early this year. They were able to weather that. JD Martinez still on the IR, able to weather that. You've got guys that have come up from the minors from Toledo and have come in and stepped in and have done an admirable job. You got a guy like an Alex Avila, your backup catcher, who is essentially leading this team with his batting average and with some leadership. And these are things that you might not have had last season.
Nice.
On top of that, you've got a guy like Victor Martinez, who I think has come to the end of the line. He has reached the end of his rope. And he is able to sit there and provide you with some timely hitting now and again. This team has shown that they have a very potent offense, and I think with some tweaking to that bullpen, I think you have a shot to maybe win a World Series. And look, I know we're only in May. All right, and maybe I'm sitting there and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid for the Tigers. All right, but I think you've got a good enough offense on this team that can help carry you, and I think you've got good enough starting pitching on this team to where if you just sit there and you do some things to this bullpen, it's going to really help you.
Unfortunately, though, when you look at it, they're going to have their hands tied behind their back, and here's why. In order to improve the ball club, you're going to have to add 2 or 3 bullpen relievers, which would require trading some of your high prospects in the minors, which you're going to need in the future, or it's going to require drafting your best reliever that many people think has the highest potential in Jimenez. So that's why you're caught in the middle, and that's why this is such a tough situation for the Tigers in that they're right around 500, they're playing well, but this offense is great. Don't get me wrong, they do have a potential to do some damage. But here's the thing you don't want to get fooled and don't get your hopes up. Don't fall for the smokescreen. The AL Central is brutal, but the rest of the American League is going to do some things to the Tigers. You know, the American League Central is awful. The Detroit Tigers, maybe by default, by winning 83 to 85 games, might end up where it shakes out, where they're going to be the division winners. But if your overall goal is a deep run in the postseason, that bullpen cannot collectively sustain any length of success over a period of months, or let's just say a period of 7 games in a series. You think that bullpen can be relied upon? I don't think so. So you're going to be relying on your offense to carry you, and in the postseason, good pitching usually does some damage, and the Tigers have shown it in their past where good pitching has shut down that collective unit. And one thing you got to keep remembering is if this unit is in place, Miguel Cabrera comes back game 1, his groin tightens up. So we're starting to see a little bit of wear and tear with some of our athletes. And we've weathered the storm. We're playing well, but a little bit of concern has creeped in regarding what's going on with Miggy because these groin issues, these minor nicks here and there, might add up at the worst possible time. So, you know, my grand thesis is they should be a team that hopefully sells, but if they're going to be a team right around 500 and competing, I hope that they can maybe even take it a step further and maybe reach their potential, which might be just getting to the postseason and losing in the first round.
What about this? What if they were to go and maybe offer a team like, I don't know, the Kansas City Royals, who is a total abomination this year? They're the worst team in the American League.
Awful, yeah.
What if you were to go to a team like Kansas City, offer them, you're going to have to give them some prospects is what I'm assuming. I'm not 100% sure what it would cost you, but try to go get a guy like a Calvin Herrera. All right, that's their closer. The guy can sit there and throw mid-90s. He, you know, has proven time and time again that he is actually a closer that you can sit there and build your bullpen arm around. Okay, so you go out, you go get this guy. You plug him in for Frankie. All right, for Francisco Rodriguez. You sit there, you demote Frankie. You maybe make him a situational arm. Maybe you can sit there and maybe make him a setup guy. He's just kind of there when you need to maybe spell Herrera, you spell him with Frankie. When the game's kind of out of reach, you bring him in, you give him some work. You sit there and move out a guy like an Anibal Sanchez. I think at that point, your bullpen looks 10 times better and it's 10 times more lethal.
I'm the Kansas City general manager. Call me up. Give me an offer.
Bling, bling, bling. All right. What do you got going on? What would it take to get Herrera from you?
Okay, you're looking for Herrera. What's going on, Al? Everything going good over there?
It's not too bad. Just trying to strengthen this bullpen a little bit, and I see that you guys are struggling a little bit, and you're probably looking for the future. So what's it going to take for me to get Calvin Herrera from you?
What do you think about Matt Manning and Jimenez?
Well, Jimenez is off the table, all right? But Manning and what else would you be looking for? Maybe a guy who's maybe down in Toledo. Maybe we can sit there and swing something there. I got a guy like maybe a Buck Farmer.
No fucking way.
Sorry, man, that's not doing it.
No,
I think
it's not doing it.
I want an everyday player. I want Matt Manning has to be included if you're not doing Jimenez. I want Matt Manning and JD Martinez.
JD Martinez? You're not trying to win now. You're trying to win in the future. So what's JD going to do for you? He's an expiring contract. That's not going to help you out.
No fucking way.
Sorry, man. What else do you want? What else do you want?
I'm going to have to hang up on you. This deal is never going to happen. So obviously, here's the problem. Again, like I said, the issue is the Kansas City Royals know where you're at. They know what your position is.
But where are the Kansas City Royals at? They're not going to win this year. It's obvious. This is a team that is a complete dumpster fire.
So the Tigers aren't going to be the only team that is calling, and I'm going to be like,
if you get in early on them, you don't want the price to go up. So you get in now is my point. You call them now, and you sit there and you try to work out a deal.
And here's the thing, though, that is also of concern regarding, obviously, Jimenez you're not going to trade for because he's 22.
And you're not going to give up J.D. Martinez. I don't think Kansas City's going to want a guy like J.D. Martinez.
Well, home runs sell tickets, and a guy with potential to be a big bopper with a bat can also help out. But you look
and I'm not necessarily opposed to trading J.D. Martinez. You're showing that you're able to sit there and you've got bats that can do the job now, and you've got guys who can play that position right now. So I'm not necessarily concerned with if they were interested in a guy like J.D. Martinez, if it's going to sit there and it's going to help your bullpen out, sure, go ahead and do it.
See, I think improving this ball club through trade is going to be incredibly tough because you don't have that much in the minors, and you don't have that much that you can give up on the current roster where if you took him off, you'd go, oh, that's the only guy because he's not here, J.D. Martinez. The rest, you don't want to give up Castellanos. You don't want to give up McCann. You don't want to give up, Alex Avila. Who are you going to give up? Anybody that you give up is going to potentially hurt this offense and this chemistry. So that's why, again, the big key is the Detroit Tigers are stuck in purgatory. This is what you got. Improving this squad is going to be super tough. If they make moves at the deadline, I would almost guarantee it and say that the moves would be selling, not acquiring, because I don't know if the salary situation could be extended or more resources could be given. So I feel like they're going to probably stand pat or make minor moves to improve the minor leagues. So that's why this squad, when you watch it, you say to yourself, okay, you got to ride or die with this crew. And what you're seeing is a team that's already had 2 extended losing streaks, and I probably see another one on the horizon. The month of May looks really tough.
Look, what if they were to give up a guy like a Matt Manning, a Michael Gerber, and I don't know, Dixon Machado. Dixon Machado looks like he's ready to come up and play now. He looks like he can maybe possibly play multiple positions, and I see a log jam at shortstop where I don't know if he's going to be able to come in and make an impact, where you can go out, get a player, plug him into your bullpen, possibly get another bullpen arm if you can work out some type of deal to make everything kind of work out and even its way out. I think they've got pieces that they could trade away and sit there and come away with a deal for a guy like a Calvin Herrera.
Fine, then your
bullpen is that much better.
I want Matt Manning, Buck Farmer, Arsenio Leon.
And then, you know what? I would probably do that deal.
3 for 1?
I would probably do that deal, yes. Because I don't know if Buck Farmer, as well as he's pitched now in the minor leagues, I don't know if there is necessarily a spot for him right now to where he can come up and make that type of an immediate impact that getting Calvin Herrera in here would help strengthen this bullpen.
Okay, so you think that Arsenio Leon, Joe Jimenez are guys, Matt Manning, guys of the future that you could stick with. Maybe Buck Farmer you'd be willing to let go, but some of that combination you would be willing to trade if it involved the right mix.
Look, you got to give something to get something, and I think the way this team is playing right now and the way they are set up, you go out and you get a piece that can help actually make your bullpen solidified and get you somebody who can close a game and not give you a heart attack when trying to do it. I think you go out and you make that move. I think you have to at this point. This team right now has proven that its offense and its starting pitching is as good as just about anybody else in this league's. It's your bullpen that is crippling this team.
It's a ball club that is definitely head-scratching. They definitely elicit strong feelings of anger when the fans look at it, when you watch the team, because you have an offensive performance where you drop 19 runs on Seattle and you go on to lose the series. You have 2 extended losing streaks of 4 games. You got massive injuries. You got your pitchers who are having a string of great performances, quality starts, and then they go around the next go-around and they're giving up a ton of runs. So it's an up-and-down ball club, one that's going to make us upset. It's a bipolar club. And when you have a bipolar club, the bullpen is like their meds. When the team's on their meds, they can be managed. When the bullpen is all over the place, giving up hits, not throwing strikes, manic, man. It's a tough situation.
Let me ask you this. Does Chicago scare you at all?
No.
Okay, does Minnesota scare you at all?
Nobody in the Central scares me outside of Cleveland.
Cleveland scares you, and that's a team that you have proven that you're already able to sit there and handle. You've only lost one game, and that's when Justin Verlander, who notoriously pitches poorly in Cleveland, had an absolute dumpster fire of a game and got manhandled. That's been the only game that you've essentially have wasted away and dropped. Cleveland does not scare me this year. Last year, they terrified me, and I don't know why. It was just an aberration. It was a weird year where you couldn't seem to sit there and get out of your own way, and Cleveland just had your number. This year, I think the American League Central is ripe for the picking, and I think if you were to sit there and solidify your bullpen with one, maybe two more arms, and you get at it early, you can get out to a big enough lead where you don't have to worry about all the noise later on coming down the stretch.
At the time of this recording, we're tied with the Cleveland Indians atop the AL Central, 14 wins, 12 losses. It's not a bad team right now. Not a bad team. They're playing okay. The Detroit Tigers are a team that you could enjoy watching, and it's just one of those things where when it's all said and done, are they a team that's poised to give you the ultimate reward and payoff with success, or are they a team that in the end is going to let you down? You know where I stand. I think it's a team that at the end of the day is going to let you down, but along the way, I like that they're battling. Along the way, when you look at what this Tigers team is doing, you can only play who they put in front of you with that schedule. But when you look at it, numbers don't lie. The stats, when you look at the advanced numbers and the advanced sabermetrics for that bullpen, it could shake out to be one of the worst bullpens and the worst collection of pitching talent that's ever been assembled.
I
think that's going to hinder them and be the main reason why this team fails to succeed.
I agree with you. That's why I want to get out in front of it early.
Make some moves.
Sit there, try to make a move before the trade deadline, before those prices go way up. Look, you know what the problem is with this team. I think everybody in baseball knows what the problem is with this team. So you sit there, you call somebody out of the blue and say, hey, what's it going to take for me to get this guy or this guy, and what can we do? I don't think Joe Jimenez is going to be able to be a trade commodity. I think his time that he spent up here early, maybe getting knocked around a little bit and just kind of seeing what he's got to work on, because he's got an electric fastball. It's electric. But he needs a secondary and maybe a third pitch to be able to get in and out of innings, especially when he gets in trouble. He's got to be able to sit there and go back down to Toledo, and he's got to be able to work on that. He's got to be able to develop that craft. I think his time that he had up here, I think it's going to prove to be an exceptional learning experience for him, and I think it's going to make him a better pitcher in the long run. Just right now, it's not his time. I think we were both really excited to see what this kid could do, and we've seen it. It looks good at times, and
but he's young.
It's going to get him in trouble in other times. He's got to sit there and he's got to have more of a repertoire. He's not going to be able to get by on just the fastball alone.
With the Detroit Tigers, it'll be a fun watch the rest of this week. Continue to dominate Cleveland, get out ahead in the division, and most importantly, stay healthy. That's what this team needs. A healthy JD Martinez coming back should give them some new life and continue to provide some assistance to that offense that is doing great things. It'll be fun to watch, and we'll be here to definitely peek in and continue to evaluate what's going on with the Detroit Tigers. Now, quickly to end the podcast, the You Suck Award, I think, is universal this week. Nobody's going to disagree that the Boston fans who were throwing racial epithets at Adam Jones,
throwing peanuts at him as well.
Throwing racial epithets. It's horrible.
Their series with Baltimore is going to be a lot of fun to watch as the season continues along, but at a certain point, the fans are going to have to control their rage and are going to have to sit there and dial back what they're doing, because you are making yourself look stupid. You're making the Boston Red Sox look stupid. And what took place in Fenway earlier this week is just uncalled for.
It's 2017, bro. Come on now.
Adam Jones is one of the best players in all of baseball. He's an outstanding athlete. On top of that, he's just a good guy. And for you to sit there and to demean yourself, demean your product, and demean your baseball team by using the language that was used is just uncalled for. Has no place in this league.
You suck.
You suck.
Boston fans, come on now. You got to grow up with that nonsense.
Got to be better. Got to be better.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Another fine podcast has been recorded. Always a great time, sir.
Always exceptional. Let's go Tigers. Keep it up. Keep doing what you're doing. And if I'm Alabila, I'm getting on the horn with somebody.
Make a move, please. Guard Reggie Jackson goes 9th to the Charlotte Babcocks.
Babcocks? Keep
Freudian,
that.
huh?
Can you keep that? Put that at the end.
Guard Reggie Jackson goes 9th to the Charlotte Babcocks. Come on now. Babcocks. Babcocks. All right. Bobcats.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.